Hello, my name is Michael Bailey. I'm from Waxahachie, Texas, 75165. My email is michaelbailey931@gmail.com. Uh, this is a interview resume video. So I'm from Waxahachie, Texas. I'm a Waxahachie, Texas native. I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. I plan on trying to find something within the community that is supportive of the community. That's not just saying support of the community isn't just charitable income. Is more of like a reality of a job. Uh, but and that's the reality of why I would be working. It's to support my freedom or my choice of variety of freedom. Um, I'm locally educated. I'm also kind of self-taught, but also at the same time, I do have a high school diploma. A I have a high school diploma. I have started Navarro College, but I only attended one semester and I dropped out because I just don't think it's for me. In high school, let me rewind, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So in high school, I was a 3.0 GPA, class rank of 199 of 396, and I like making a joke. I was either smarter or dumber than half the people, but it was probably my name because it's alphabetical. Uh, small town. I had attained college credits through dual credit through the Navarro for welding, and then I had also attained college credits for culinary arts through a cooking school that's lost in the wind, I suppose, because I've never really looked back into it since high school, and the information's just kind of lost to me. But there is a college out there that's specifically for culinary arts, and I have a credit in it. But nevertheless, and so at Navarro College, the path I was attempting to take was an associate's degree in environmental science. I had to attain through that course. I had to attain environmental science single semester. I had to do a math class that was for a high school equivalent, pretty much, to be ready for the college math. And then so I had those two classes. I did have English, and then I dropped that because it was way too much to have 5 classes and also have a 20+ hour week job. And so the reason why I dropped it was because I just feel like the cost and time, your investment, isn't all there for the future that we're about to embark upon in the coming decade or so. It's like Revelations, I suppose you could say. Those of little faith that didn't know that the plasma of the electricity was going to turn that rock into a loaf of bread, but Jesus knew. But anyways, we're just not there yet. But it's, to me, in me being in my 30s, I just don't see it as and my goal to stay locally. As far as I'm concerned, like locally, nothing is really required of, unless you're going to be a surgeon at the Baylor Scott White, or a lawyer, or even, not sure, even as a lawyer, you probably won't have too much work here in Waxahachie. Everything's kind of set in stone and yes or no forms. But I have acquired a lot of education outside of schooling, of standard schooling, just personal hobbies and curiosities, and I just love science, so a lot of the physics and stuff like that was a drive for me this last couple years to learn about. So, and I do have 2 certificates out of Coursera, which is a lot of time to get, because I had spent about 40 hours to attain 2 of the 5 certificates. Financial reasons and technological reasons of why I never continued on to obtain all 3 of them. That, and also it's somewhat of a bad investment because of the industry. The parts that I learned about is kind of more of a common skill that's going to carry into the future, but not so much the later. So I did complete 2 of those. One is the technical support of involving yourself with other people of customer relations and stuff, and then the other one is kind of more of the function of technology, how technology functions, the basic understanding of networking, how it goes through the system all the way up to point A to point B. And so between the 2, it's a technical support certificates. And I had also obtained a food handler license, and I consider it an accomplishment. A lot of people don't have it. I suppose a lot of people don't have it. It's a homeowner certificate that you have to take I think it's a 2-hour class, 4-hour class, something like that. I believe it's about 2 to 4 hours. It's a frameworks certificate. It's just that you have to know the process of how to purchase property in Texas, and not even Texas, just in America in general, how you go about the standard form way of acquiring property and the security of your investment. And um, so my employment history, I'll go through them real quick. I did. I'll put it on there. It's 1 week at the College Street Pub, here in Waxahachie on College Street. It was 3 years at the Home Depot here in Waxahachie, and then I did, was that 6 months at the Diversified. It's a temp service. I worked for a company called Vistamart. They was on 77, now they're on 287 in Ritter Springs. I worked at American Watertop for about 6 months, and then Taco Casa, I worked there for about 2 months, and then Taco Bell, I worked there for 3 years, and then Burger King, I worked there for 6 months, and all of my jobs are in Waxahachie except for Burger King. Burger King was in Pearland. This was a point in my life, that life events that happened. So I was making a big change in my life. I was 23. And before that, I had worked at Lifehome Industries here in Waxahachie. I was I'll list them off and I'll come back and explain them a little bit more. I worked there for about a year, and then I worked at US Aluminum here in Waxahachie for a year, the old company, not the new company. And then before that, I worked at Abacus, which was a temp service for Lifehome for about 2 years, and they no longer exist. And then before that, while I was in high school, my last 6 weeks in school, 9 weeks, something like that, I had worked at Scarborough Renaissance Fair. I was a part of the ground maintenance crew. I normally don't put that in my resume, just because it's like a high school job, and I could list it. It's just one of those things that, the less people know about you, I guess the more they desire, I would think, in an application process. My personal accounts, YouTube is Michael Bailey The Despair, which this will be on, and then also Instagram, Michael Brian Bailey. My email is michaelbailey931@gmail.com or baileymichael931@gmail.com. Either one, I'll check both of them. They're both on my phone. So my skills, I have lots of skills. I have forklift experiences. I had experiences with an H2O floor sweeper. I think it was an M2O floor sweeper. This is what the brand was. It's a Tenant. Had swept around the factory. It's a driving one. I had done cashiers, data entry, customer interaction, so customer service, labor, just log out, tag out. I had a warehouse position that was lock out, tag out, the FIFO for not just the food industry, but also for the manufacturing industry, because the material is expiration sensitive, and just communications with the directions of what the job is at hand, and then just time management, because time to get the job done. And then everything else is kind of my personal experience that I have personal educations and just handlings and dealings with it, and actual experience of the structure and the functions and the applications, and just what you can and can't do with it. So like I've done hydroponics before. It led to aquaponics and aeroponics and the future of all the like lab grown meats and stuff. But anyways, so it's like automation. I have pruning, composting, fertilizing, supply lines, trellis, topiary, container, and soil. So container and a flower bed type gardens. The most important thing about horticulture is that I had, in my personal time, desired to seek out like a hobby, something to do. So I was going to join the Master Gardeners Association, and I had completed the course all the way up to the last day that would be of the actual test. And it's an open book test, so it's like, it's nothing but friends there. But I wasn't going to take it seriously as like a intern. Apparently, I had misconceptions of what it was about, and I didn't plan on interning to a position for like a management. So I was just there for the hobby of labor, just good labor, but something to do, So I was like, well, I took the class, I understand it. I got to meet some interesting people. Maybe when I'm more secure in my life and stuff like that, financially secure, I'll have more desires to be in that situation. So power tool, back to my skills of other things. I had power tools, so drills. Had learned how to use a hand sewing machine. soldering irons, soldered wire together. I've soldered speakers and microphones and audio jacks and power wires and batteries. I've actually changed out my own batteries on my dog's remote. I have a dog collar. I had changed out the batteries on that. I had taken out the shock function of it, so it doesn't have that. Uh, I've changed out batteries and speakers, and so that's the soldering iron. A miter saw. I had professional experience in that. I've used one of those at one of my jobs, the diversified uh, Vistamark. As a hobby, I've used a Dremel, wood, metal, cutting and sanding, carving. I was into wood carving for a moment. Uh, I tried large scale, so I used a grinder and I tried on a log, and that was a little too much going on for me. It was more of a job than a hobby, so I was like, well, put the grinder down, you know. uh, so sanding and pipe threader. I have personal experience with a pipe threader. That's with the Home Depot. I had actually threaded pipe from a ½ inch all the way up to a 1.5 inch. I believe more commonly 1 inch to 1.5 inch. Yeah, I believe that's the largest that I personally cut. Uh, Jigsaws, sawzalls, utility pumps, pressure washers. I used to own a pressure washer, but I've never actually been employed from a position to use an industrial size, but it's a pressure washer. So I used to have a rent house, and I used to pressure wash the sidewalk and the driveway, and it cleaned it up. And a paint job goes a long ways. It's a lot to say about pressure washers for concrete. Um, and so I do a lot of artwork, and so materials for moldings of arts and stuff. So like alginate, epoxy, silicone, concrete, softwood, hardwood, and plaster is some of the materials that I've familiarized myself with, and the functions like the weather resistance of plaster, and how long the material will last weather unprotected from the weather, and the differences in types of woods, and concrete doesn't bond to fresh concrete or old concrete. So silicone is the same way. You can only pour it once, and it only sticks to the new, not the old. Epoxy is pretty interesting, and it's not a hit or a miss. It's a proper portions. You have to be very precise with the proportions and the mixing of it. And then alginate is pretty interesting to learn that it has the same properties as silicone. It's just that it will deteriorate and shrink within a day or so. And silicone, I just learned this, that it will actually break down with different types of materials. So silicone is not completely utility used for all situations. And then moving on to hand tools, compressions, and pipe threads and flares and NCP. Learned that about the Home Depot. I worked in plumbing. Pliers, rope braiding, maypoles, macrame, rulers, measuring tapes, hand saws, hacksaws, wrenches, PVC, plexiglass. Computer skills. So as a hobby, I was like 3D editing and photoramery. So photoramery, 3D printing, setting adjustments and stuff like that. Team view, remote, connections, Word, Paint, text, just your standard AV connections, and YouTube, Chrome, Edge, Google. Some of the formats I've worked with is the PDFs, the JPEGs, the GIFs, the GIPs, the Word, the docs, and some OBJs for the 3Ds. Install programs onto my computer, and so PPE is like earplugs, safety glasses, safety gloves. I've almost always had steel toe shoes since my second job, or second time working at the Life Home. So I pretty much had steel toe shoes through most of my employment. I have experiences with photography. Photography is an interesting one because it teaches you a lot in personal aspects of component functions with computers and stuff. So I have a DSL camera, and I have experience with long exposures and light painting, and just seeing portraits and landscaping. So the triangle, the aperture and the exposure and the focal length, and so that's photography. Solar powers, DC, AC inverters, batteries, solar power lines, running the power lines, switches for on and off, battery isolators, solenoids, uh, and then car maintenance. I've owned all of my vehicles except for a 2017 ProMaster, which I no longer own. The only vehicle I own now is a 98 Suburban. But on all of my vehicles, I had some experience off of ownership of them. I had changed out transmission, changed out belt pulleys, distributor caps, locking cylinders, spark plugs, fuel pumps, calipers, TPI, position sensor, a drive shaft, multiple starters, oil pan, tires, headlights, taillights, power steering pump, shocks, window motors, the actual window of a car, brake pads, fuel pumps, water pumps, radiators, oil, and a serpentine belt, pretty much belt and pulleys. So mechanically, if you look at it, you can I have at least the ability to understand the purpose of it. Is that a pump? Is that like an alternator? Is that for oil? Is that for water? Is that for gas? Is that an AC compression line? Like, for the most part, I have experiences and can identify common functions of machines and applicable uses. And just like a child, if you can take it apart, you can probably put it back together. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. I can read a manual. And so housekeeping, moving on to the next, variety of jobs and professional experiences and abilities to obtain a job. So housekeeping skills. So as far as restrooms, I used to have to clean the restrooms at the Taco Bell. I worked there for about 3 years. I had cleaned the restroom at the Vista Mark at the Diversified. And just my personal restroom, like everybody's got one, so it's like a toilet, sinks, mirrors. I've cleaned vinyl, towel, carpet, mop, sweep, sanitize, vacuum, dust, polish, clean the carpets, kitchen and dishes and countertops and trash bins, oven, stove. The experience of housekeepings of like restaurants and just what's in a kitchen. I've operated ovens, stoves, fryers, used thermalizer with water boilers and bun warmers. And then my most proud things is that all my life personal experiences is that I had used to rent houses, and so used to have a yard for the longest time. I always had a yard, so I love mowing. That's my goal for a job is mowing. I have experience with push mowing. I have operated a ride-on tractor. I understand the functions of a 360 zero-turn mower. But I personally, and a weed eater, I personally prefer a push mower. Just push mowed, compost, weed eat, edge, tree and bush pruning, seed spotting, and that goes back to like the horticulture. That the reason why I preferred that was because it would have a bag on the back and you could compost, and it evolved. So it's a lot of thought into it and a lot of kind of soothing. It's kind of therapeutic. There we go. Not so much the noise. It's not the noise that's therapeutic. It's obviously the function of the work and the task, and it continues to progress. That the job is never done, but it's a successful, filling job. So I've done a little bit of everything and stuff, and so it's like a I have a little line at the bottom of my resume. It says a little bit of everything, but a fire alarm and a vacuum tube to make X-rays, or with acetine brine bottle. So the fire alarm, just as a joke, the fire alarm is because it has the radioactive myrcenium in it, and so I was learning about vacuum tubes and how they work. And the thing with X-rays is you have to have a radioactive particle with a current run through it, and it has to be spinning, and so that way it generates the X-rays through the motion of it. The centrifugal force is what kind of directionally sends I'm sure. And then the acetine, I'm not sure about the electrons. I'm not educated, but it's adventurous to think that it's like to make like a homemade capacitor and have some kind of reactant with it, like a iodine or the americanium and some acetine. I believe those would be like the two that would like generate like a thermal reaction or even a electrical reaction, but I think it's more thermal. So I don't think you would be getting an actual capacitor out of it, but it's the thought process that just keeps building. Like, oh my, like. But I approved this video and my resume to be sent to any one of the jobs similarities that I'd be applying for. But my name's Michael Bailey. Well, I guess I could go back and talk about where I worked at, what I did. Uh, so at College Street Pub, I was hired as a cook, but it was more of a dishwasher job. That's why I left. So just kind of a mix from cook, food prep, dishes, mostly dishes. Uh, at the Home Depot as a sales associate, and so I would assist customers with their product. I would downstock items. I would look up inventory, its locations. I would overhead things sometimes with a partner, with a team member. Um, I left there because of personal reasons and conflicts with my viewpoints of the company and the the ethic points of the operations. I was felt like it was time for a change. I worked at Diversified, the Vista Mart. I was a sawmill worker, so I'd cut the beams for window frames and get them ready and follow in order. Each one is a custom length, so you have to keep it in order uh, on a cart, along the string. And then I eventually moved from that position to the glass installer. I'd install the glass and then hammer it in. Um, the reason why I left that job was just because of financial reasons and personal thoughts. And the job was actually just supposed to be a forklift job, but it turned into a um, production position job. So I mean, it's a job. It's a job. It was kind of a little bit of everything going on with that. Time to move on, but I worked at the American Water Top, and I was a line operator, a machine tender. I would sit there and catch the product as it comes off the machine. Um, one side of it was corals. That was not too much more active, but it was somewhat more active. Just boxing it up, gluing the box, palletizing it, wrapping it up sometimes. And the other side is the wire tie itself, and it would feed it off the machine, and you just have to continuously keep up with the machine and roll it up. You would have a line of machines, probably about 6 machines, I believe, and then you would bag that up and load it on a pallet and palletize it and label it. I did that for about 6 months, and then it was just time to move on. They was in the process of growth, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure of a good way to put it. That it was just very populated. Uh, 6 machines went to 3 machines, so it was kind of uh, prepaid by the minute. Uh, Before that, though, I had worked at Taco Casa for about 2 months. There's a small gap in between the American Water Tie and the Taco Casa. I believe it's about a month. A month I was unemployed. Um, but uh, the Taco Casa, it was interesting. It was just that I had so much experience at the Taco Bell that it was just kind of like the same viewpoints as the Taco Bell. It was like, kind of move on to something different. I had actually taken the job because I was unprepared to leave the Taco Bell, but I was ready to leave under certain conditions, and so um, and then the Taco Bell, I had the reason I had left. I had worked 3 years at the Taco Bell. The reason why I had left the Taco Bell was because I was given a job for Life Home. I was trying to go back to Life Home, but then a conflict came up to where I had worked there before, and so they thought that it would be unfair to the rest of the previous employees that they had this new policy implemented that once you work there once, you can't work there again, and so or for the company itself. So since I worked for the actual company, not the temp service, that I was uneligible to go through the temp service to work for the company, no matter how you leave. Even if they was like, come back anytime you want a job, uh, we'd love to have you back. But that was the reason why I had quit the Taco Bell, was just because it was just enough motivation to get me to leave the nest of the Taco Bell and just be like, oh well, I'll see what's out there. I'll venture out. I don't want to go back though, because then it's like, you didn't accomplish nothing. And so I took the job at Taco Bell because I was finding it very hard to find a job in Waxahachie. Um, After coming back from Pearland, that's when my career had kind of taken a turn, because I was down in Pearland and it was impossible to obtain a job. The only job that I was able to find was Burger King, and I did that for about 6 months, and I was just like, I had to move back because I was like, Houston is not for me. Uh, it's just, I guess, a trial run to see how the growth of Waxahachie is going to look in the coming decades. So, um, kind of know ahead of time of what to expect, I suppose. But I had previously worked before the Burger King. I worked at the Life Homes. The reason why I worked at Life Home was because of I left Life Home was because I had a personal revelation of self-discovery and confidence in oneself, and I was just uh, choosing to see what's out in the world. But not really desiring to move away from Waxahachie. It was just that I felt it probably would have been the best situation in my life, but I was mistaken. Um, because if you look at my previous employment before that versus the after, you'd say, whoa, something happened. Uh, but I had worked there for about a year. I was a process tech. Oh, so at Burger King, let me go back because some of my jobs I didn't say. Taco Casa, I was a cashier, just dishes, the cash register, all it was. Taco Bell, I did everything in there but management. Cashier, food service, clean the restrooms, swept the parking lots, put up the inventory of the truck, change out the sodas, clean the lobby, clean the kitchen, changed out the oil and deep fryer, cleaned out by the dumpster, washed the windows. I mean everything. Change out the sign. Uh, a little bit of everything. Uh, so everything but management. Uh, Personally, I didn't want a management position. And then at Burger King, I was solely a cashier. That's all I did. I really didn't do anything but a cashier. Uh, it was a uh, fully staffed store. Every time I worked there, it was completely fully staffed. At the Life Home, the second time I worked there, I was a process technician. And then what that is that I would go around and I'd change the settings on the machines, or just uh, ensure that the machine is running to the same settings as the environment changes. I wasn't very good at it, but at the same time, if it's an in-house training, and it's just it's what it is, right? It's in-house training. But um, I think what was probably just the scarcity of security of job, that I'm the type of person, like, how they say one person can't do everything. I'm that type of person that I'm like, you want to bet. So it's like uh then at that position I had actually attained my forklift license, and I had also obtained a in-house training of the lockout tagout process. And I'm not sure if that was actually a course program that's carried into like a universal type warehouse setting. I'm sure it is, but not specifically saying for every warehouse that you go into or production you would be company standard to a lockout tagout. Um, but I had a so that was my job, and that one was actually more environmentally climated, um, of not having a fan, meaning not having a fan, or in the heat, or being able to be next to a machine in the winter, uh, or a heater, uh, because it was so much movement that you would always be away from the machine. You would always be away from the settings that has like a traditional just standing point, like a function at the machine, a person at the machine, a tender at the machine. At the US Aluminum, the one in Waxahachie, it's before they sold, so it's US Aluminum as in CRL, and now it's US Aluminum CRH. But the US Aluminum CRL still exists in California. There, I did a little bit of everything. Did a little bit of everything. On one side of it, I did the stocking and the pulling, and my job title was actually stocking. It was solely stocking, and we'd take the incoming metal, 20-foot beams of aluminum, which is aluminum. It's aluminum. How hard can it be? But it's like very heavy. We lift about a ton a night, so if you divide it, I'd lift half a ton a night every night. Uh, there towards the end, it was more with the forklift, just because it was getting to be so much work that as we was expanding and organizing, uh, most of it was done with the forklift. And then there I did some of the pulling, and so you have to seek out the inventory and then pull a set number of parts and then keep them all together, label them. And I've also did some of the packing for them as well. So it's customer orders and the packing and stuff of aluminum beams, the material in between, so that way it doesn't scratch up. And then I also did the Tenant M2O floor sweeper, and I drive around a floor sweeper cleaning, as propane operated, clean all the floors around the warehouse. And then that became like almost the permanent thing to do. I was doing that about three nights a week, so I was doing a lot of that. And then at Life Home the first time, through the temp service of Advocates, I worked there for about 2 years. I was a machine tender, that I would take the product coming off the machine, and I package it, and then palletize it, and then tape it up, stack it on the pallet, and tape it up. And then that was probably most of it. That was about all of it. Just constantly moving product from a machine line to the staging for it to be processed downstream towards the other processing of the plant. So a lot of cardio. Yeah, so that's my interview resume explanation. Is 42 minutes, so you can always fast forward. It's Michael Bailey, 469-716-9196. Uh, yeah, so I would think I'm qualified for almost everything. You can email me at michaelbailey931 at gmail.com if you're interested. Thank you.